Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and everybody on Zoom. Welcome to our presentation this morning. A couple housekeeping. Do send your questions in the chat in Zoom, and it will be monitored. And afterwards, after the presentation, we'll answer all the questions you have. Okay? Thank you, everybody, for coming this morning. Today, we're going to talk about the myth out there that the mainframe can't be hacked, that it's not vulnerable. I think most of you in this room know that's not the case. And what I want to talk about is show you a little bit about what's going on in the industry, some of the challenges, and maybe perhaps some of the ways we could address these challenges. So a little bit about me. I'm ancient, but the two gentlemen that are with me are even older than me. So I've been around the industry for 40 years. And I don't see, there was a gentleman last night that he was too young to even say the word mainframe. And I said, if you come to my session, I'm going to card you, I'm going to escort you out because you're too young to listen to this. But I've been around for like 40 years, started systems programmer, assembler language, and all that kind of good stuff. Went up the ranks, did a bunch of things. I was with CA for 20 years and got to be SVP, distinguished engineer there. Did a lot of things around the world, solved a lot of problems, learned a lot more from customers. You think you know everything until you go talk to these big banks and government agencies all over the world. So one of the things I've always had the pleasure of doing is try to create solutions from problems. And it's always not just technical. It's user-based. It's knowledge-based. There's a bunch of different things that we're going to approach this. So with me today is Rick Jones, sitting right here in the front. He's the CEO and founder of Iconium Software, and also the developer of the product that we won't talk about today at all. With me is Mike Zinda, who is our president as well. Mike also worked at CA for 30 years. Mike is really older than dirt. He's the one that hired me at CA. So between these two guys, it's like 150 years. I don't know what's going on. I'm the youngster in the group, you know. But oh, he pays my check. I got to watch that. Okay, so today we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on in the industry today, some statistics from some of the IBM studies that have been going around, and talk about what the new normal is, and really introduce a new concept called geolocation. So we'll talk about that, and how we need to have a new paradigm to manage the security on the mainframe. Okay, some real-time alerting discussions, analytics, and anomalies. So we're going to talk about all these things. The one thing I want to get across today is really a different mind shift. I call this, and some of you guys will laugh, but the other people that are younger than us don't understand what I'm about to say. I like the branch left logical. So I want to take people's minds to say, he laughs, right? You're used to coding, branch left logical. Just get people's mindset shift, because I think there's been a big thinking process and the mainframe folks that, oh, we cannot be hacked. Oh, no, we have RACF or we have top secret or ICF2. You're wrong. I'm not saying you in this room, but the industry is wrong. You are being hacked today. I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to be hacked today. So this study from IBM from 2020, the cost of data breach report, really good study. They do this every year. Also have results from the 2021 study. But it shows that there was 524, and these are very large corporations around the world that have been breached. 17 countries, 17 industry, and the average cost about 3.8 million. We've seen higher, we've seen lower, but everybody's getting hacked. So everything I want to say means all the nodes on your systems. So it's not just mainframe, distributed, the cloud. Everybody wants to go to the cloud. Some people don't even know why they're going to the cloud, just as the buzzword to do. And they don't understand that it's costly and very unprotected unless you really do a lot of work in architecture, right? So US has been the highest hit. And some of the statistics, they keep showing, and I just don't continue to believe it, that healthcare is number one. Maybe 2 years ago, but it's changing every month. And I think it's really the financial institutions that are getting hit the most. The graphs show it's really behind healthcare, but the reason they're being hacked, right, for ransomware stuff is because of the personal identification information, right? HIPAA, we all know about HIPAA. It's been around for a decade. The patient record is just priceless. It used to be that the doctors only kept that record in print in their files, and you didn't even have access to that. Thanks to HIPAA, we have access, but everybody else has access. Can you imagine downloading all their records, your patient records from a hospital and putting that publicly? The hospital will pay millions and millions of dollars for you not to do that, right? So we continue the same study in 2020. A lot of them were malicious attacks. I come from the world, again, I had to go underground to figure out what the bad guys are doing, right? And it used to be the hackers get their props by, hey, I got into this bank, or I got it. It was just that. It's no longer that, right? You still have your hacker here and there that say, hey, I did this malicious attack. It's really now big companies that are doing this and countries that are doing this. And we'll talk about that in a second. So a lot of this stuff is really 80% is to get that personal identification information, your social security number, your bank account number, those kind of things, right? And it's costing about $150 per record. I think it's a little higher than that. But these are the financial industries that are really getting hit significantly. Now, the last bullet there, I just couldn't believe. But again, this IBM year over year, they're seeing that it's taking them over 200 days to figure out that something went wrong, right? And be able to report on it or even do something about it. What are you going to do? You have minutes. You don't even have hours or days. But what did we used to do? Run SMF record reports overnight, right? Look at the RACF, top secret ACF2. I'm telling you that's not the problem. I'll tell you what the problem is today. It's the privileged user. It won't come up because you already gave them authority to do their job. That's really where the problem lives, right? So now in the 2021, same study by IBM, your people. So there was a 10% increase in the cost of the breaches just in 1 year, right? And a lot of the work now is because of the work from home, the new paradigm, right? The new normal. A lot of it has to affect the fact that people are now working remotely, okay? And for the 11th consecutive year, I think this is changing. I think if you see this, the actual numbers for this, I don't want to put them up. It's really close to healthcare. I think by next year, I bet you it's going to be, the financial history is going to be the #1. And I'll tell you what, it's cryptocurrency. That's what's going to hit the market so hard that people are not going to know what to do. Governments don't know what to do. Banks don't know what to do today, right? So, and the average cost per record went up a little bit, right? I still think it's higher than that, probably $200 or $300 per record. All right. So a couple of interesting statistics. When people start doing zero trust designs and architecture, you see a significant drop in the cost when a breach happens. I want to tell you, dispel the first myth is that absolute security is ridiculous. It lives in Langley in a lead shield room and one terminal with an eye scan to get in. That's it. Otherwise, with this, there's no hope. But we could do the best we can, right? There's controls. There's a lot of technology available. Some of you in this room have implemented or are creating it. But I could just take a picture of a screen, and you can't stop me, right? So, but there is the movement towards zero trust. So we've seen significant numbers. An 80% reduction when we start using AI or some automation to do the machine learning to understand, what I'm going to talk about later, how we do analytics and how we find anomalies. We have to model things, right? We have to collect data. Once we model things, we collect data, then we say, well, you're out of the norm of this model. Therefore, hey, let me raise my hand. I'm telling you, RACF, ACF2, and Top Secret are not going to report on things you already give somebody, the authority to do. That third shift operator needs to do backups. That the MVS programmer needs to update sys.proglog. So what do? All right. So some interesting things. People are beginning to believe that their threats are internal. I 100% agree on that. Now, if you haven't done your due diligence or architected right, yes, the outside world can get into you, right? But I'm hoping to get through that. The problem is the blindsided is this. Now people understanding that I may have a problem internally because that person in the help desk is not working from home in her kitchen, or perhaps at Starbucks and unprotected Wi-Fi. You went there this morning and he's laughing because he knows, right? So The other thing that now the mainframe now starts the vulnerability in the mainframe, some patches, what we call 0-day vulnerabilities. These guys are scanning constantly. Now, you guys know to upgrade a machine, oh my goodness, it takes forever. You got to plan it, maybe a month ahead of time. A window at midnight on Saturday night. It's not that simple. This is mainframe. Forget about the distributed model, right? You have 700 laptops. You have 600 servers. You can't just boot every, well, they do. The distributed guys do that. In the middle of the day, they do boot. I don't know why, right? But those vulnerabilities exist and the bad guys know what they are. And those applications live on your mainframe. And if they haven't been patched, you're exposed, right? Some of the things we've seen on the news lately, all right? Social engineering. I love this one. I did this one myself. I wish I could tell you the name of the company because you will all know it's in San Francisco. No, I won't say any names. Mike is looking at me like, don't do it. I will not say any names. We're sitting there with CSO, CIO, a bunch of people. And they said, well, we're secure. We got everything. I said, really? I said, may I use this phone? And there's a sheet of paper here with everybody's phone number in the company. And I went like this, and I just dialed Susie. I'm just using names. Hi, Susie. This is Mike from Help Desk. I see you're having problems logging on. I said, I don't have problems logging on. Yeah, I see all kinds of violations, password violations. Did you forget your password? No, I'm on. Can you log off and log on again? Okay. I still see them, a bunch of them. Are you sure? Here, let me do it from here. What's your password? And I hung up. I won the deal. I was with CA at the time. Social engineering. It's hard. You can't put technology on it. And there was a group, I'm not sure, I invited him here today, that is doing a lot of training on the mainframe, which I love, right? You got to do social training. You got to do security training. You got to do attestation training with your user community. Because not everybody thinks like we do, right? I think security 24 hours a day, 40 years. I go to sleep and thinking about that. People don't. They just want to do their job. So that's a humongous goal, right? Hey, here's a 80% discount on this thing you download. Oh, it's over. You're encrypted, right? Ransomware. But unfortunately, they uploaded that to some SharePoint site. Now people are grabbing it. All of a sudden, all your laptops are encrypted. You got to pay. Or I got your customer master file. It's encrypted. You want the key? Give me $10 million. We've seen it over lately, right? Especially this last year. And a lot of that has got to do with training. Yeah, you install anti-malware, but some of the stuff hides very well, right? Or it's a PDF or it's something like that. Let me download it. It's over, right? So training becomes very, very necessity. So, we're here and we say, oh, I didn't know it happened to me. I was blindsided. Because those guys, I used to do this. I used to manage 80,000 IDs in ACF2. And we had to put up 40 people, 100 people at a time. So what we do, insert using Tom. So whatever Tom had is in the new ID. And then it went on, and then went on, and then went on. And scope creep starts to happen. It took me 6 months with 2 consultants to sit there and go through line by line, ID by ID, and remove unnecessary credentials. And that's the problem. The problem is these privileged users that get promoted, right? They just get promoted and they were doing, whatever it was, financial updates, and now they're doing something else, but guess what? They still have access to customer master file, right? So that's the problem, the procuration of, and by the way, I'm Cuban, so God knows what I'm going to say out of my mouth, but it continues to motivate the people to just do their job. I don't have time to go back and clean up, right? And the other problem is that we're now introducing a lot of partners. We've always had partners, but now, when did you hear that we're going to outsource our mainframe? No, our mainframe sits in our glass house. Now they're outsourcing our mainframe. We've all have developers in India. Just happens. Cheaper workforce, very smart people. So we got a lot of partners with a lot of credentials. And sometimes we don't go back and clean up. So this guy, Matthew Rosenquist, really good industry analyst. So he's talking about in general. And what I wanted, like I said in the beginning, you mainframe guys to really think you're part of the general. You're not in some dark corner anymore, right? You're not protected anymore. So these predictions, right, just make sense to everybody, right? So critical infrastructure is a prime target, right? They're going after the guts. And what's the guts? The mainframe, right? They know that's where the data is at. They know that's where the big banks are, have their data, where the government agencies have their data. That's what they're targeting to. So, they're targeting, and the government knows it, and the government is trying to make, different technologies, different rules, different all this, but they adapt, right? The thieves, the bad guys, right? The bad actors, they adapt, and they go around it, right? They can't do it, often enough, to catch up with them. And ransomware, it's really now attacking society. Now think about it. I want you guys to just take your hat off for a little bit and just broaden your view and understand that ransomware can not just affect your company, it can affect your society, your neighborhood, the environment, right? And solar winds, right? You know that. So it could actually, because the bad guys, and I'm going to say that in general, without mentioning names, countries are trying to infiltrate the US supply chain. So they're going to stop the trucks. They're going to stop the trains. They're going to stop food getting to your stores. That's the social impact of ransomware. And it's here today, SolarWinds, and a bunch of other ones I can mention. Again, law enforcement is trying to do their things, but it's just not catching up. And it's really becoming a tool from these companies and, or I would say countries, that are using this power now, right? There's a lot of theories, and here I'm going to go on record. My God, Mike, save me. The COVID pandemic. You've heard a lot of theories, right? It affected the world, right? They're trying to social engineer ransomware to affect the world in a negative way, right? Especially targeting US companies. All right. So artificial intelligence is really the only way we're going to get in front of this. We just don't have the time. We don't have the technology. So I'll talk later in terms of what things we could do as a solution, which is to model behavior and then use artificial intelligence to figure out, you're out of the norm, dude. You're out of bounds. Something's wrong. Let me raise my hand and do something about it, right? So cryptocurrency is going to be the biggest target. So you guys know, maybe some of you guys have some of this already, bought into it already. I did. I've lost money, made money, right? But understand that it's outside of the norms of the banking system. It's outside of the norm of government control, right? So although people are getting rich, right? And I think it's going to be the way of the future. The banking world, some of you are here, have to think about how we're going to play in that area. We just can't fight it anymore. So how do we play in that area so we can control, right? Have the customers come through us. We've been banking forever. Trust us. Hey, we do this as well. But that's where they're going after, okay? And unfortunately, still in this country, we don't cooperate with each other, right? Back to COVID. Pfizer, all the other ones, they're all working individual labs to get to the finish line first. Why don't we just work together, right? It's very hard. That's the US. That's the way we've been built. But the private and government sector have to start working together, right? Especially in the financial industry. All right. So what is the new normal? We're not, is there anybody know what this is? Doesn't know what this is? They can leave the room now. No. As you know, I mean, when I started, I actually did a punch card, one punch card before I moved on. But but everything was in the glass house. Everything was protected. You submit a window, you submit your jobs, and you come back 3 hours later and get your sys out. Now you do it on your phone, right? So the problem is because of the pandemic, I'm not gonna blame everything on the pandemic because the 3270 emulators, all those things, we've been doing this already for a while. But now we just escalated so that people are working from home, people are working from Starbucks, people are working from hotel rooms like we are, right? How many of you got into the hotel's Wi-Fi today? Are you serious? Are you serious? I'm just kidding. But it's true. Convenience, right? It's terrible network here, right? You can't get outside world, so you got to do something, right? So the unprotected Wi-Fi, we're at home, she's at home, or he's at home, and he's got to cook dinner or do something, and the kids come from high school, and they want to do gaming or they want to download something. It's unprotected laptop, right? And maybe it's not patched as well. We used to, in the data center, when you print, there's a bin for shredding, right? You scissor out, you go to this bin, they shred it, and they lock it for that. Now we leave it in the hotel room. Now we leave it somewhere. You think that bad guys don't pay, some of the workers here in the hotel to go grab stuff or take pictures of stuff? Somebody comes up to you with $10,000, right? So that's the compromise of your confidentiality. It's happening, and you have no idea where it's happening. You got partners around the world, you have to have them, right? So some of the, again, not just the working environment, but people, they used to run these applications only in the data center, right? Only in there because they were critical, and you had to run these reports. Now you're doing it remotely, and you're downloading and creating CSV file or PDF file, right? And sometimes it's just, not on purpose, but accidental, right? But again, if you're in a location where you could say, you go tap the guy on the shoulder, hey, I messed up. What do I do? Now you're at home and you're calling a help desk, and maybe 3 hours later, or maybe you just don't do it at all because maybe you didn't even know you did it, right? So all these things, these trusted users that have all this access, is really where the problem is. And we got to figure out how to tap into that, right? So we talk all the time, it's all about the data, right? So if I have concentric circles, I have the data here, and think about the government, top secret, secret, confidential, and so on. That's how it's still designed, whether it's a government agency or not. And you have your users, your top secret users, your secret users, and all that, right? Data classification. Where is it? And who is looking at it? It's no longer, I call it now the plexiglass with a hole, right? So people are reaching out with the data. It used to be in the glass house. Now it's a plexi full of holes, okay? So we understand that sometimes some of the utilities they use to do reporting, right? EasyTree or whatever it is to download this stuff, create CSV files, FTP things across the world. And you're not monitoring that because somebody is supposed to be doing that. That's your job. But they're doing it somewhere else that you have no idea where they're doing it, okay? So geopolitical stuff is now heating up where you see governments, very large governments, as you know, trying to do these breaches for, not for financial gain. It really isn't for that, right? Some hackers do that, of course. Some of the ransomware guys, but they're doing it to disrupt the supply chain, the financial institutions of this country, right? And yes, Europe has issues, Asia has issues, but 80% is here. There's the problem, right? So the weakest links becomes then, again, the humans, they're accessing the data. How do we protect it? How do we understand this? There are some encryption laws, in Europe. You can't go encrypted across borders, right? Because they don't know what. That's a good model to have. But in this global economy, you have to be able to send data across the world, and you got to send it encrypted. So it becomes a, yes or no, how do you play the game, what risk model you use, right? And we're subject to a lot of these regulations. There's a quote somewhere in here that says that the regulators have gotten ahead of the technology. So the regulators are hurrying up to protect the information the HIPAA stuff, the financial stuff, but we don't have technology. Technology is still catching up, right? So but we're still subject to that. And unfortunately, there are serious consequences. In certain countries, the CSOs, the CIOs, the CEOs will go to jail. They will go to jail, right? Here they get slapped, with lawsuits. They get, $1 million, fines, all those kind of things. But in some countries, they will go to jail. So these guys are not sleeping at night, and they shouldn't be sleeping at night because they don't know where their data is. So what is the model? Mr. Dick, sitting right here, one of the industry, and this is as close as we're going to get to our technology. We're not supposed to talk about that, but we briefed him, on what we're doing, with geolocation and the modeling for out of time frame usage and all these things. You like your picture? Okay, good. Yeah, no. So anyway, we're glad to work with people like him and other industry analysts in terms of the approach of what we're doing. But again, we're not going to talk too much about it. But this is my favorite quote from Napoleon Hill, a very wise man. Okay, and you can read it by yourselves. But really, when we're in situations like the Great Depression in 1929, some of you were still around. No. Some of us will remember. I know, Mike. I'm sorry. This is me. He's okay, right? But what happened? A lot of people went bankrupt, and a lot of people became millionaires, right? A lot of people became millionaires and then later billionaires. So I think the new normal is never going to go back to the old ways. We're done. We've learned way too much. When did we learn that a doctor can analyze you through Zoom? You can't touch you, do your pulse thing. But here we are. I did at least 3 calls with my doctor. When did we think of that a kindergarten, not an adult school, a kindergarten teacher can teach from home? My goodness, right? I used to fly to New York for my old company, beautiful company, for a 2-hour meeting. It took 3 days and $3,000 for me to do that for a 2-hour meeting. This is the first time I've been out in 2 years. We do everything from Zoom. And you guys on Zoom today, you understand that you're sitting there watching us because you couldn't be here. So we've learned way too much. But these challenges that we have today are going to drive innovation. So that's why we start thinking, how are we going to solve this problem, right? So it's all about the data. We already have way too many SMF records, thousands and thousands, because all our reporting has been on reading the records, creating the reports. Maybe a day later, maybe 2 days later, we do not have time for that anymore. It's minutes, if not seconds. So we got to think of the mainframe as a distributed model of accessing the data, right? So it's not over there anymore in DB2, although it rides there, it lives there, right? We now access it through some application on your phone, or we move this somewhere to the cloud for people to get access to. So you got to start thinking access to the mainframe data is now like access to the distributed in cloud. It's no longer there. You don't even know it's where it came from, IMS, or you don't even know where it came from, right? So the non-traditional users of the data is not the employees in your building. It's really partners around the world because you need them. You need developers in India. You need developers in China, whatever, right? So we need to put controls around those individuals. So it's really the data access is really from everywhere. And you got to understand that. We got to put some way of control for the bad actors, which to me, I've said this like 5 times today, it's the privileged users. We already understand the bad guys out there and the countries are attacking and stuff like that. That's something that technology will help, right? But technology can't help you today. I mean, there is some, we'll talk about it in a bit, but they won't come up in an ACF report because they already have access to it, all right? And also moving towards the zero trust, I think helps. I think that the concept that it will be absolute security is wrong, but it's definitely the right way to move. So read it up on it, look at it, try to implement as much things as you can. And what we're doing is we gotta really help, especially in financial institutions, help the regulatory guys, the guys that are doing the audit, create the reports to help them to do that. Because if I was one of those auditors, I'll be asking very difficult questions. I'll say, all right, here's this data. Tell me who touched it in the last 24 hours and from where. And what do they do with it? They read it, they download it. Do you know they downloaded it? Okay. So this is where the young people in the room, I don't see any super young people in the room. Maybe you? You, okay. Do you know what this is? Out of the room. Can somebody escort this guy? But you know what this is. You can tell. See? He's shaking his head up and down for the guys on Zoom. The problem is guys are coming out of college. They have no idea what a green screen is. None whatsoever. They don't know how to do the commands. They don't know. But they do know GUIs. They do it on their phones. So we have a paradigm shift in terms of how we manage the mainframe. The problem is just getting the data in a way, in a model that now the guy who's doing the network and the cloud monitoring, that's just another node. Because right now it's you guys in the corner. Those mainframe guys in the corner, I don't know anything about that. We got to stop that. Today there's a lot of technology to bring in that data, go through SMF records, do whatever you got to do to put it in a model where that young man right there can have more value. And it's good for him, for his career, okay? So that we can, get data from somewhere and present it in graphs and let the analytics present to us the anomalies. Oh, there's something wrong, there's something red. Oh, now I'll go talk to the mainframe guys in the corner, okay? But this is real, this is today. And unfortunately, a lot of us are retiring or dying, right? And the new generation has I don't know if they're represented here, there's a good company that was showing yesterday that they're actually training people on the mainframe. It's like, that stuff needs to go back into the colleges, right? Because the world is still running on the mainframe, but these guys have no idea how to manage it. Okay, so let me talk about real-time alerting. You saw those statistics for IBM. I didn't believe it, but I mean, their way they do their research is very impressive. 228 days before they found out something was wrong for them to remediate. We don't have days. We don't have hours, people, at all, right? So how do we change that? I'm trying not to talk about product. We change it by modeling behavior, right? So the first thing we need to do to instrument something so we could do analytics, so we could do anomaly reporting, right? We need to model behavior, right? So you're a third shift operator, or you come in at midnight to 6 o'clock in the morning, and you have a lot of power. You're doing backups, you're doing all kinds of things, right? But I want to know when you logged on at 12 noon from Russia with your credentials. Okay, the fact that I can't, spoof your credentials is ridiculous. I can't. You're in Starbucks, I'm spoofing your credentials like this in my laptop. So that's one piece, one parameter of the analytics. Is it really you? For the most cases, yes. But what are you doing working out of your time zone in a different country? Now, we have to be flexible. What if the CIO is in Italy on vacation? Okay, but we alert, figure it out, and then we go on with life. Today, you have no clue. So the part of the big answer, what is geolocation? We'll talk about it in a second. But the other part is modeling the user analytics, modeling their behavior. So now you're going to say, you're out of bounds. This is not normal. You're downloading 10,000 records. You never do that. So it's what you access, what you do with what you access, what time are you accessing this, and where are you? You got to answer all those questions in order for us to raise our hand. There is a problem. Houston, we have a problem. So that's half of the answer, right? The other part is geolocation. Again, just because I had to go into the underworld, I know how to IP spoof anybody. I can bounce around Europe, Asia, the US, and all that. You have no idea who I am. So there is technology that captures your real IP address before you do any of that. Now, unfortunately, there's no magic. That technology needs to live in your devices. You've heard, maybe you are doing it today, when you have a partner, you're actually giving them a corporate laptop to do whatever work you're hiring them to do. Because you disable the USB drive, you put instrumentation in there to capture that before they do an encrypted SSL tunnel through VPN. You come in through, it's like, I can't see you. I can't, depack your packet and understand who you are. I can't, right? So unfortunately, yes, we do need to install something that comes up at boot time, right? And if you try to mess with it, then the device doesn't help. So, you could do that by saying, in order for you to have access, and if anybody in here is not doing MFA today, you should be fired. I'm sorry, I talk like this. You have to do multi-factor authentication. It's a bunch of technology available out there. So in case I do spoof your ID, you have ID and password, but I'm sending now a text to your phone, I don't have your phone. So it should fail. A must, 100%, you must use MFA. There's a bunch of technology, right, available to do that. But the geolocation becomes an issue. You want to be able to see a guy in a map like you see Google Drive, you can see the map and come down to exactly where he's at. And again, it may be okay because he's a partner out of Europe coding for you. It's okay, but you need to know that, right? And we got to make sure that all those guys, right, configure these devices the way that you need to instrument them. And if you can't, you want to use you just tell me, well, I want you to use my VPN. And in that VPN, you're downloading the software that needs to get reboot, boom, good, goes into the root vector. So when at boot time, you have access to that. All right, so let me recap a little bit. Really, what we're trying to do is to augment what you have today. Get out of the mindset that ACF2, RACF, and top secret, you're good to go on mainframe. You're not, because you don't have access to the violations of behavior that you already give people the authority to do. So get that out of your mind, right? I'm not saying to replace them. No, you need them, but we're just trying to augment that, right? And again, it's about self-survival, minimizing the legal risk. I always say to people, if you lose the data, you better have backup. Again, if you don't have backup, you shouldn't be in this room, right? In some disaster recovery plan. I get that. Because you understand even, Amazon, okay, is having issues in Europe. And people are talking to us about, well, what happens if the Amazon, data center goes away? Do we shift to the US? Sure. They could do onesies and twosies. They're designed to do that, but whole countries, the whole Europe, right? It becomes very difficult. So you need to plan for that. And again, we want to identify the individual things that can compromise your data. And to do that, you need to model in order to improve how you're going to do the real time. And real-time learning means we're still going to write a record, SMF record to the system console. It'll come up in red. He won't understand what that means, but he's over here, right? And we're going to send him an email and send him a text within seconds. So remember that, right? We're modeling the good, powerful guys internally. And we're saying, dude, you're doing this out of a time zone that you should be working on. And you're doing this out of a location you shouldn't be working at. There's a problem, send an email, send an alert, near real time. It's imperative that we do that. And the other thing, as I said before, train your people, right? Social engineering, the example I showed you here, right? Train your people. But there is technology available, the where, the who, the how, what they're doing. We need to do that, and we need to do that now. Thank you. And what we'll do right now, entertain any questions? No question. Okay. If I open up the floor, promise not to be too hard on me, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give a mic to our president here so he can talk. There you go. And just in case,
you're older than
Rick,
me.
you are older than me. I'm older than you. Well, you look older than me. All right. I would like to hear your thoughts. You guys are experts here. You know, you guys are seasoned people. Your thoughts, agreement, disagreement, and point to you, put you on the spot. Talk to me. I'm sorry, you got to pass the mic for the people in Zoom. Hold on, you're next.
I thought I did hear you say that you would be able to tell us about a mainframe that had been hacked.
Yeah, yes, because if we model bad behavior, we're sending an SMF record to the console saying something's wrong based on the analytics that we just ran. And then we raise the hand, we send an email, we send a text, whatever. So using different methods. We're not using RACF reports because the guy is authorized to do this job, but he's doing it, you know, some other time, some other place that you're not supposed to.
And do you know of an example of a breached mainframe?
Oh yes, many I can't discuss.
Okay.
But especially now that
I've seen insurance companies.
Yeah.
That have been hacked. There's different ways to hack.
Sure.
There's so many utilities. There's so many utilities that, you know, our operators can use, our application programmers, they can run a, you know, a file A job and copy a file, you know, a master file, they can run an ID cams repro, and they can, you know, get that data. And in this case, that's what happened at this insurance company. I know that people were copying files, you know, and they're not masked. There's no masking going on in the file, so they get the entire file and the entire record. But we don't, and they've got the privileges to access it, right? So then they've got the gold. They've got a copy.
So the hacking is not like what we thought about. Oh, it's going to destroy the system or bring it down. They're way more sophisticated. They're way more sophisticated than that now by just copying the data, compromising the data. I picked on him, and I knew he was going to pick on me. Go ahead. It is on.
Okay, good. You talk about an important aspect of what you're doing is identifying the location of an incoming connection, and I'm wondering how you do that reliably.
So I mentioned without stepping into areas.
Got something in
Yes.
the laptop.
You have to.
Well, I get that.
Yeah.
But a hack's not going to come from one of your laptops.
No, I understand. But if you want to give, we're talking privileged users, not regular end users. I want to see my bank account. We're not talking about those guys. We're talking
Actually,
people
not talking about privileged users. You're talking about privileged credentials.
privileged credentials. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the privileged users, I don't want to see them slurred.
Right.
And it's really privileged credentials that you're talking
Privileged
about.
credentials. Absolutely, sir. And the thing is, if you want to talk to me through VPN because you're remote, you can download my VPN client, and I'm going to download some things. I'm going to ask you to boot, and it's going to be in the boot sector that way you can't modify it. So I'm going to catch your IP address before you try to do any spoofing whatsoever.
Yeah, but that presumes that a spoof is coming from one of your devices.
What I'm saying is,
Oh, did I miss something?
if you're a privileged account, you're going to use one of my devices or my VPN access.
I see.
You're not a regular guy off the street coming in the front door. I'm going to stop you from doing that. Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments? I want people to agree with me, please, so I keep my job. Yes, sir.
Thanks. I know you can't talk in detail about the product itself, but I'm just trying to understand so I get that the device has to have this geolocation technology in it. How is that information passed along to the mainframe so you can do the verification that it's come from the right place? I mean, I don't need to know bits and bytes.
Talk to us afterwards. It's not
ideas.
fair to the rest of the presenters. We're not supposed to have product. But yes, we have started tasks on the mainframe that we capture that information, store it away, and to do analytics.
Okay,
We have our
so it's-
database.
So it's some protocol you have.
Yes,
to-
of course.
Okay.
Yes, of course. But again, I'm trying to genericize this, right? Because the problem is it can be solved in multiple different ways. If you can figure out a different way to model the data and report on the data, that's fine. You've been shaking your head a lot up and down. Yes, you agree with me? Yes. Okay, so just say it on record so I keep my job for 2 more days.
I do find a lot of this fascinating, and I believe that the geolocation is something that I've never heard before. I agree with a lot of your points. I'm not a security expert by any stretch of
You
the
are now.
imagination.
You had an hour
Well,
training. What are you
well,
talking about?
I am now a security expert, and as an expert, I agree with your opinion and your ideas.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I would love to learn more about the bits and bytes like this gentleman over here had said, because to me, getting that data and getting, if I were to deploy a piece of software onto an untrusted device, I don't hand you the device.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm relying on them not manipulating that device from the boot sector level, which I understand is absolutely probably more advanced than as an expert. I am. But that does feel a bit untrusted to me still, right?
Yeah, it's problems. Nothing's 100% like I said before. That since I picked on you, you don't have anything to say? You don't know what a green screen is? You don't know what says one prog like this?
I was playing along.
Oh, you're playing along. I paid you not to say that. I paid you
There's
not
a
to
gentleman
say-
in the room from the University of North Texas, though, that can help you. They've got some great classes.
Exactly. You want to say anything, Rick?
Well, since Nestor's pointed out that,
Put the
I
mic
just
up.
got out of the rest home and need to take my medicine soon, so I just thought I would say something right quick.
He's
But,
the inventor of this technology, so
but
he.
to answer your question, we get a lot of questions about that, and I can do it without installing something. That's called hacking,
Yeah.
and people kind of frown on that. So, but it's pretty interesting how we do it. It's not, it's code. It's like what we do. So, but it's a different way of addressing that, and by us being part of the credential VPN download or whatever it is that they have, makes it an easy process for us to
Mhm.
and do we get 100% of them? I'd like to say we do, but honestly, we're probably in the 75 to 80%, and right now you have 0%. So we're making improvements, and we're looking at that all the time. But how can we improve this?
Thank you. Stephen, you want anything? Any comments? No, no comments on record. Listen, we have to pay you more. Yes, wait, hold on, because the guys on Zoom don't hear. it.
So
Be
you
nice.
talked
Be nice.
always,
Okay.
always. It's early in the morning. Of course I am. So you talked about rules that you're going to model. So is this based on AI and machine learning, or is this something that I would have to define then as somebody who knows how my privileged user
Okay, so I'm trying not to talk about product
I
because
understand.
we do that, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, right? You have to model behavior of your users somehow.
Right.
Right. So if I were to start this from scratch, I'll have to build a database and look at the SMF records coming in. Oh, he's coming in from 8 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 5. Oh, he's now 10 o'clock at night. Write a report, write an exit, right? Write an API. So my point across is we have to model user behavior. And to me, it's the privileged credentials. I'm
I
glad when I
understand.
get scolded by my elders and
I understand that requirement. I was just wondering how you get there, right? There are different ways, like you said, right? There are
Yeah, there's different ways.
to get there.
Again, we're
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of what we're supposed to. Yeah, we do that for you. So obviously, but again, the main point that I wanted you guys to get out of this meeting, like I said from the beginning, is that you're now part of everything. You're not just the guys in the mainframe in the corner. You're part of an ecosystem that needs to be watched and looked at in different kinds of lenses. No point intended. Let's pass the mic to the back there, and then we'll pass it over here. Yeah, the more the merrier, of course, right? You have to have samples, at least 30 days, but the more the merrier in order minimum, right? Because people do, different operators may switch time zones to support other people. People go on vacation. People like us, we're all traveling. We have our labs. We're doing our work at home. What's he doing in Dallas? Well, that's okay. He's in something. You pass the mic to somebody over here, and I'll get back to you. Be nice. Yes, sir.
So I guess when it comes to modeling, it's like Nirvana, but the reality is, even now with the whole work from home, I mean, people don't work 8 to 5 anymore. They
That's
hop
right.
up at 2 in the morning and go do their job now
Mhm.
because they're playing with the kids all day. No, I mean, I mean, you're sitting on a Zoom meeting, which I would argue that it's one of the least productive environments I've ever worked in my entire life. And I mean, I think there's no substitute for personal, close interaction. But I'm an old guy, like
You
old as
really?
dirt, you know. But
You're my elder
and,
as well.
and I like the whole interactive stuff for pinpoint. Hey, I'm going to show you how to do this, or we're going to look at what you're looking at because
We could do that in Zoom
Yeah.
today. With it, we
well,
never
well,
thought
that's
we
what-
could
That's when
before.
it's really good, you know. I
Right.
mean, but
So modeling is always an art. right?
yeah. So
Oh, there you are. I
so
invited you
when
last night.
so if you're going to do
Yeah.
that, I guess I just haven't seen it to be, and I've been around it and been working with products that have it. It's just really, really hard, and you tend to get a lot of false positives because of the dynamics of the
Absolutely.
work
That's what we're
environment.
using machine learning,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. I could tell you, um, mm, using mathematical least squares analysis, you bubble things that happen here, you bubble things that happen here, and then once in a while one of these jumps here, that's least squares analysis, understanding what is the probability of this going to this, right? That's what machine learning and AI is all about. So the more data you have to analyze, the better your model becomes. And in the anomalies, this person, I know personal friends, two sisters live at home and they support the credit services for a very big bank. So when you have credit card problems, you're calling these two sisters at their house. Now they were issued corporate laptops with disabled USBs and all that. But again, photograph, can't solve. We're not going to solve everything. I told you there's 100% security is not. Pass the mic up, please. It is not possible. This way, or you had a question? Somebody had a question? Right here. Oh, pass it this way, please. Are we doing time?
I was just going to, my statement is going to be very similar to his. Personally, I work very erratic hours.
Okay.
And I don't see how something like that could be modeled. And he is basically saying there's a lot of people doing that.
I agree with you.
So
The more data.
do you
the
have,
better.
more data isn't going to change the fact that I work erratic
I
hours.
could certainly analyze the fact that you do work and not throw off false positives all the time. I do. I
Okay.
understand your behavior. I'm
All right.
modeling your behavior, so I need to understand your behavior. Okay? Wait. Oh, I like those. Okay, so how do we convince executives with a budget? So I hear you and I agree with you. And 20 years ago, yeah. So the question was, or the statement was, how do we convince executives that hold the purse strings and budget to invest in other technologies because they believe, well, the mainframe's this old thing in the corner, like, all those running their business, right? I could say examples. I can't, but you guys don't know. You're running every day. How do you convince them to buy new technology, to think it differently, right? I did that at a major corporation. You will all know by doing that phone call in front of them. It's like you're vulnerable. Everybody's vulnerable. Understand that, right? And unfortunately, that mainframe that's holding tens of thousands of your financial records are in somebody's phone.
The other thing, we have to convince that CISO or that DPO officer that they're at risk, right? And I can show them to say, listen, he works all erratic hours, right? But he's also copying all these files. Do you know that, Mr. CISO? Do you know that, DPO? Do you know that application development partner you have is copying all your files, right? Today, nobody tells them, right? And that data.
because they
could
don't
be-
know sometimes.
That data could be in a foreign country now. Somebody has a copy of, if you're in banking, what's called DDA, demand deposit accounting, it's your checking account, right? Somebody copies all those files, right? You do it at 3 in the morning, I know. And
I
there's
should be
also-
watching you.
All of a sudden, there's a breach, or they're notified of a breach, and that CISO and that DPO's got to say, how did that happen? And it can happen today with all these utilities that people can run, your partners can run, and they do it. Trust me, I've opened up development
yes,
centers in
yes.
India, and they got full access to the mainframe, and they're copying those files because they're developing applications for your business. So, one last thing, the session ID here is 51518. And you have to put that badge code in, or so you can get that badge code, the security warrior.
10
So-
stars, or if there's 20 for me, 20 stars or whatever, I'll pay you out as you're going outside. Oh, no, I want dollars. They want, and unfortunately, it's like $20 and up. Yeah, it's not, no. Any last questions? I really appreciate, and we could talk about this all day. I think you guys know and understand the issue. I think just different paradigms and ways of addressing it. But do
There's
fill
also-
this out, please.
There's also, I sent out some research reports. They're sitting on some of these chairs here that talk about some ways you can solve these problems and technology that can help you, okay?